The first time I met Emma was at Mike's dinner party, just before we left. Mike had casually mentioned, "Emma's kind of a tomboy." I blinked, confused, because when I saw her, she was anything but. Emma had delicate features, wore a soft white dress, and looked up at me from her chair with shy dimples in her cheeks. Honestly, nothing about her screamed tomboy at all. Meanwhile, I'm a bit curvy, and of all things, we happened to be wearing the same color dress that day. Emma immediately noticed and grinned. What a coincidence. We're wearing the same color. I felt like such a clown. Embarrassed, I forced a smile and reached out my hand to be friendly. But seriously, look at her acting all innocent now. She used to be so aggressive, always chasing me around like I was some prize. Mike laughed, giving Emma a little shove. She jumped up and smacked his shoulder. "What are you talking about? See what I mean?" Mike chuckled, dodging her hand with ease. I stood there awkwardly, my hand hanging in the air, watching Mike and Emma horsing around like I wasn't even there. I closed my eyes, trying hard not to seem jealous during my first meeting with my boyfriend's friend. Then suddenly, loud slapping sounds echoed through the room. Opening my eyes, I saw a bright red handprint smacking across Mike's face. After that night, I slowly got to know Emma. Mike sang her praises all the time. Cheerful, optimistic, a girl clearly raised with privilege. I added her on social media, curious. Her profile was a dazzling highlight reel of surfing in Hawaii, skiing in Hokkaido, and studying with glasses in quaint British coffee shops. Even though I was a little jealous of their playful fighting, I had to admit to Mike, Emma really is impressive. He grabbed my phone and frowned. Why did she make her profile public? She used to only show 3 days of posts. That casual comment sent my overthinking brain into overdrive. Why open it up now right after she outed me? As I scrolled through her photos, Mike leaned in eagerly, urging me to keep looking. After a while, I stopped and half-joked, "Do you have a crush on her?" Mike snorted. Brandon said, "Who wouldn't like a rich princess like her?" "Don't worry, she doesn't date. If something was going to happen between us, it would have already." Still staring at her photos, he looked disappointed, like someone who'd lost something precious. I think I first heard Emma's name back in high school, the day Mike finally accepted his feelings for me. He was drunk that night, mumbling Emma's name over and over, tears streaming down his face at a restaurant. His 6-foot frame sobbing like a puppy. I overheard his friend push him. "Come on, Emma just went abroad. She's not dead." His friend called me, and I rushed to pick Mike up. I carried him home. He looked at me and said, "You'll never abandon me." Then, almost like he was doing me a favor, he added, "Let's be together." I really liked Mike. I gave him all my sincerity and love. But Emma was always there, in his heart somewhere. It was hard not to notice. I didn't ask questions, and Mike acted like he'd forgotten her because of my passionate love. He began learning to love me too, until Emma came back from abroad and threw everything off balance. Despite my obvious discomfort, Emma kept inviting us out, like she did it on purpose. She invited us to play badminton. I didn't want to go, but I didn't want Mike alone with her either. "Mike, can't you just say no?" I begged. "I don't know how to play, but I want to try." Mike rolled his eyes. "Seriously? You could play with someone else." "It doesn't have to be Emma today," I stammered. Mike frowned, impatience creeping in. "So, because of you, I can't participate in normal activities? When did you get so possessive?" I stayed silent. His tone told me there was no stopping him. Reluctantly, I changed into sports clothes and went along. At the court, Emma stood there in a sporty skirt, like a proud little swan. She tossed the racket directly to me. "Jenny, let's play together," she said. I tried to decline. "I'm not very good." Before I could finish, Mike jumped in. "I'll play with you." "No, I want to play with Jenny," Emma insisted, her enthusiasm unshakable. I had to accept. As expected, I couldn't even return her serves. My slightly chubby figure awkwardly shuffled across the court like a clumsy raccoon. I was getting angry. Was she doing this on purpose, making me look bad in front of Mike? She shined even brighter. Beautiful, skilled, absolutely perfect. When the shuttlecock dropped in front of me again, I threw my hands up. "I'm done." Emma smiled, racket in hand. "Okay, let's take a break together." Then she put down her racket and redid her messy hair. She deliberately held a strand tied between her teeth, fixing her hair right in my direction, exposing her swollen, graceful neck. She looked like a gentle, adorable deer, showing off her neck. My heart skipped a beat, but I was sure she was deliberately showing off her charm. Sure enough, when I turned around, Mike was standing right behind me, staring at her. I clearly saw his admiration for Emma growing more obvious. But whenever I brought it up, he'd say, "Emma and I are just friends. You're my girlfriend. Don't overthink it." Despite his words, I felt like I was his backup plan, his practical choice, because I treated him best. Maybe I was just the honest fool picking up the pieces. Emma, seemingly unaware of my inner turmoil, kept inviting us to movies. She sent us tickets she'd already bought. Her seating arrangement was interesting. 2 seats together and 1 right in front of them. I already guessed I'd be sitting in front while she and Mike cuddled behind me. Emma texted a sorry emoji. These were the only 3 seats available. I was annoyed, but Mike still wanted to go, and there was no way I'd let them be alone together. It was a horror movie too. I could already imagine Emma pretending to be scared just to sit next to Mike. Sure enough, as soon as we arrived, Emma ran over and grabbed my arm, her expression pitiful. "You don't mind, do you?" I was about to lose my temper when she added, "I'll sit with you since Mike's sitting in front." "You don't mind, right?" "Mike." Wait, what? Emma actually wanted to sit with me? The movie theater was dim, the air thick with the scent of popcorn and anticipation. I sat stiffly in my seat, Emma's arms still looped through mine, her warmth seeping into my skin. Her grip was light but deliberate, like she was anchoring herself to me. Mike was a row ahead, his broad shoulders slouched as he stared at the screen, oblivious to the storm brewing in my chest. Emma leaned closer, her breath tickling my ear. "You okay, Jenny? You're so tense." Her voice was soft, almost teasing, but there was a genuineness in it that caught me off guard. I nodded, avoiding her eyes. The horror movie's opening credits rolled, casting flickering shadows across her face. Her delicate features looked sharper in the low light, her dimples hidden but her eyes bright, watching me more than the screen. I shifted, trying to focus on the movie, but her presence was a distraction I couldn't shake. The first jump scare hit, and Emma flinched, her fingers tightening around my arm. I froze, my heart pounding, not from the movie, but from the way her touch lingered. She didn't pull away, even as the scene calmed. I glanced at Mike, expecting him to turn back, to check on us, but he didn't. He was engrossed, or maybe he just didn't care. "Scary, huh?" Emma whispered, her voice barely audible over the movie's eerie soundtrack. She tilted her head, her hair brushing my shoulder. I caught a faint whiff of her shampoo, something floral, like lavender. My stomach twisted. "Yeah," I mumbled, my voice betraying me with a slight tremor. I wasn't scared of the movie. I was scared of her, of what her closeness was doing to me, of the way my jealousy was morphing into something else entirely. By the time the credits rolled, I was a mess of nerves. Emma finally let go of my arm, stretching with a small yawn. "That was fun," she said, her smile bright as we shuffled out of the theater. Mike was already ahead, texting someone, his face lit by his phone screen. "Fun for you, maybe," I said, trying to sound playful but failing. Emma tilted her head, studying me. "You didn't like it?" she asked, her tone curious, not mocking. I shrugged, avoiding her gaze. "It's not my thing." She nodded, like she understood something I didn't. "Next time, we'll pick something you like. Promise." "Next time." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I didn't know if I wanted a next time. Not with her, not with this confusing knot in my chest. The next week, Emma texted me directly. "Not Mike, not both of us, me. Coffee this Saturday? Just us. I owe you for surviving that horror movie." Her message was followed by a winking emoji, and I stared at it for far too long, my thumb hovering over the reply button. I didn't tell Mike about it. I wasn't sure why. Maybe I was afraid he'd want to come along, or maybe I just wanted to see what Emma was playing at. Either way, I agreed, and by Saturday morning, I was sitting across from her at a cozy cafe, the kind with mismatched chairs and chalkboard menus. Emma looked different in daylight, less like the untouchable princess from her social media and more human. Her hair was loose, slightly messy, and she wore a simple sweater that made her look softer, less intimidating. She stirred her latte, her spoon clinking against the cup. "So, Jenny," she started, her voice light but her eyes sharp. "Tell me about you. Mike talks about you all the time, but I want to hear it from you." I blinked, caught off guard. "What's there to tell?" "I'm not exactly exciting." I laughed, but it sounded hollow. I wasn't like her, with her globe-trotting adventures and effortless charm. Emma leaned forward, her elbows on the table. Don't say that. You're interesting. I can tell. Her words felt like a trap, but her sincerity disarmed me. I fumbled through stories about my job, my love for old books, and my failed attempts at gardening. She listened intently, her eyes never leaving mine, her smile encouraging me to keep going. It was unnerving how easy it was to talk to her. When it was her turn, she spoke about her time abroad, but not like her social media posts. She talked about the loneliness of being in a new country, the pressure to always seem perfect. I found myself leaning in, hanging on her words, seeing a side of her I hadn't expected. As we left the cafe, she brushed her hand against mine, accidental but lingering. This was nice, she said, her voice soft. We should do it again. I nodded, my throat tight. I didn't trust myself to speak. Mike noticed something was off. I'd been quieter since the coffee date, my thoughts tangled in Emma's smile, her voice, the way she made me feel seen. He confronted me one night as we washed dishes together, his tone sharp. You're acting weird, Jenny. What's going on? I froze, my hands submerged in soapy water. Nothing's going on. I lied, but my voice cracked. He sighed, drying his hands. Is this about Emma again? I told you, we're just friends. I know, I said quickly, too quickly. It's not that. But it was. It wasn't just jealousy anymore. It was confusion, longing, a pull I couldn't name. I didn't tell him about the coffee date, about how Emma's laugh had made my heart race, about how I'd caught myself thinking about her when I should have been thinking about him. Mike didn't push, but the distance between us grew. He spent more time on his phone, texting who knows who, while I spent more time replaying my moments with Emma, wondering what they meant. Emma invited me to a book club she was part of, held at a small bookstore downtown. I hesitated, but the thought of seeing her again was too tempting. Mike was working late, so I went alone, my stomach in knots. The bookstore was warm and cluttered, shelves overflowing with paperbacks. Emma was already there, sitting cross-legged on a beanbag, a book in her lap. She lit up when she saw me, waving me over. Jenny, you came. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself smiling despite my nerves. The book club was small, just a handful of people discussing a quiet novel about two women finding solace in each other. As we talked, Emma's comments were thoughtful, her passion for the story evident. I caught myself watching her more than contributing, captivated by the way her hands moved when she spoke, the way her eyes sparkled when she got excited. Afterward, we stayed behind, browsing the shelves. She pulled out a book and handed it to me. A YURI novel, its cover subtle but suggestive. You might like this, she said, her voice low, like we were sharing a secret. I took it, my fingers brushing hers. Thanks, I whispered, my heart pounding. I didn't know if she was flirting, or if I was reading too much into it, but the air between us felt charged, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Things with Mike were unraveling. We fought more often, small arguments that escalated into silence. He accused me of being distant, and I couldn't deny it. My thoughts were consumed by Emma, her laugh, her touch, the way she made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. One night, after another argument, I left our apartment and walked to the park, needing air. I didn't expect to see Emma there, sitting on a bench with a sketchbook, her pencil moving swiftly across the page. She looked up, surprised, then smiled. Jenny, what are you doing here? I shrugged, sitting beside her. Needed to clear my head. She closed her sketchbook, giving me her full attention. Want to talk about it? I hesitated, then poured out everything. My doubts about Mike, my confusion about her, the way I felt caught between two worlds. She listened, her expression soft but unreadable. When I finished, she reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. You deserve to be happy, Jenny, whatever that looks like. Her words lingered, a lifeline I wasn't sure I could grab. Emma's texts became a daily ritual, each one a small spark that lit up my otherwise gray routine. A photo of a stray cat she'd found, a meme about coffee addiction, a random question about my favorite book genre. They were small, but they felt like lifelines, pulling me toward her. I found myself checking my phone constantly, my heart skipping when her name appeared. It was dangerous, this pull, but I couldn't stop myself from leaning into it. One evening, she invited me to a local art gallery, a small space tucked away in a quiet part of town. Mike was out of town for work, and I didn't hesitate to say yes, the decision feeling both reckless and inevitable. The gallery was intimate, with soft lighting and vibrant abstract paintings lining the walls. Emma was already there when I arrived, standing in front of a massive canvas splashed with reds and blues, her head tilted as if she were deciphering a puzzle. "Jenny," she called, her face lighting up. She was dressed casually, a loose blouse and jeans, but there was an elegance to her that made my breath catch. "Come look at this one. It's wild." I joined her, our shoulders brushing as we studied the painting. It was chaotic, swirls of color colliding in a way that felt both violent and beautiful. "What do you think it's about?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. Emma turned to me, her eyes bright. "I think it's about longing. Like two forces pulling at each other, not sure if they'll crash or blend." Her words felt heavy, like they were about more than just the painting. I swallowed, my throat dry. "Yeah, I can see that." We moved through the gallery, our steps slow, our conversation weaving between the art and our lives. She told me about her love for painting, how she'd taken it up abroad but never showed anyone her work. "It's too personal," she said, her voice soft. "Like showing someone your heart." I wanted to ask to see her sketches, to know that part of her, but I held back, afraid of crossing a line. Instead, I shared a story about a childhood art project gone wrong, paint everywhere, my mother laughing despite the mess. Emma's laugh was warm, unguarded, and it made my chest ache. As we reached the final room, she stopped in front of a painting of two figures, their forms blurred into one, like they were dissolving into each other. "What do you see?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I stared at the painting, my heart pounding. Two people finding each other, becoming something new. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just us. "Yeah," she said softly. "That's what I see too." We stood there longer than necessary, the silence between us thick with unspoken words. Her hand brushed mine as we turned to leave, and this time, I didn't pull away. The touch was electric, lingering, and I felt it all the way home, where I lay awake, replaying every moment, wondering what it meant. The tension between us had become a living thing, a current I couldn't ignore. Every glance, every accidental touch, felt like a question I was too afraid to answer. I was drowning in it, in her, and it was tearing me apart. Mike and I were barely speaking now, our conversations clipped, our silences heavy. I knew I couldn't keep pretending, not with him, not with myself, not with Emma. It was after another book club meeting that it all came to a head. The discussion had been lively, the novel about unrequited love hitting too close to home. Emma's comments were sharp, insightful, her passion for the story drawing me in. I watched her hands move as she spoke, the way her hair fell into her eyes, the way she seemed to glow when she was excited. I was in trouble, and I knew it. After the meeting, we lingered outside the bookstore, the night air cool against my flushed skin. Emma was leaning against a lamppost, her scarf loose around her neck, her breath visible in the chilly air. "Walk me to my car?" she asked, her voice soft but expectant. I nodded, my heart in my throat. The street was quiet, the only sound our footsteps and the distant hum of traffic. I could feel the weight of what I needed to say, the words clawing at my chest, demanding to be let out. I didn't know if I was ready, but I couldn't keep carrying this alone. "Emma," I started, my voice shaking as we reached her car. She turned, her expression open but cautious, like she sensed something was coming. "I need to tell you something." She stepped closer, her eyes locked on mine. "What is it, Jenny?" I took a deep breath, the words spilling out in a rush. "I think I'm falling for you. And it's terrifying because I'm with Mike and I don't know what this means, but I can't stop thinking about you. Every time I'm with you, I feel alive. And I don't know how to handle it, but I needed you to know." The silence that followed was deafening. I braced myself for rejection, for her to laugh it off or pull away. But she didn't. Her eyes widened, softening with something I couldn't name. Surprise, relief, maybe both. She stepped closer, her hand finding mine, her fingers warm despite the cold. "Jenny," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I've been waiting for you to say that. I didn't want to push, didn't want to scare you, but I feel it too. I have for a while." My heart stopped, then raced, a flood of emotions crashing over me. Relief, fear, joy, all tangled together. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She squeezed my hand, her eyes steady. "We figured out. Together." We stood there, hands clasped, the world around us fading. I wanted to kiss her, to close the distance, but the weight of everything, Mike, my doubts, the future, held me back. Instead, I held onto her hand, anchoring myself to this moment, this truth. Emma's confession changed everything, but it didn't solve anything. If anything, it made things messier. I went home that night, my heart pounding, and found Mike on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He looked up, his eyes tired, and I knew I couldn't keep lying to him, or to myself. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He set his phone down, his jaw tight. "I know." It wasn't a long conversation, but it was brutal. I told him about my feelings for Emma, about how I'd been unraveling, how I couldn't keep pretending. He wasn't surprised, which hurt more than I expected. "I saw it coming," he said, his voice flat. "You've been different since she came back." "I'm sorry," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. I meant it, but I also felt a strange relief, like a weight had been lifted. He packed a bag and left for his friend's place, his parting words cutting deep. "I hope she's worth it, Jenny." The door closed behind him, and I sank to the floor, sobbing, not just for him, but for the version of myself I was leaving behind. The next day, I met Emma at the park where we talked before. She was sitting on the same bench, her sketchbook open, but she closed it when she saw me. Her eyes searched mine, full of concern. How did it go? I told her everything, the words tumbling out. She listened, her hand resting on mine, her touch grounding me. "I feel like a terrible person," I admitted, my voice breaking. "You're not," she said firmly. "You're honest. That's more than most people can say." We walked through the park, the autumn leaves crunching under our feet. She told me about her own fears, how she'd been afraid to admit her feelings, how she'd worried I'd choose Mike over her. "I didn't want to ruin what you had," she said, her voice soft. "But I couldn't stop wanting you." Her words made my heart ache, a mix of guilt and hope. We didn't kiss, didn't cross that line, but we spent the day together, talking, laughing, letting ourselves be vulnerable. It was a start, fragile but real, and I clung to it like a lifeline. Emma and I started spending more time together, moving slowly, carefully, like we were navigating a minefield. Every moment with her felt like a discovery, a piece of her unfolding before me. She wasn't the untouchable princess I'd first imagined. She was messy, human, full of doubts and dreams she'd kept hidden. One afternoon, she invited me to her apartment, a small, cozy space filled with books and half-finished paintings. She showed me her sketchbook, pages filled with delicate drawings of landscapes, faces, moments. One sketch caught my eye, a girl with my features, sitting in a cafe, her expression soft and unguarded. "Is that me?" I asked, my voice catching. She blushed, nodding. "I drew it after our first coffee date. You looked so real, like you weren't trying to be anything but yourself." I didn't know what to say, my heart swelling. We spent the afternoon talking, sharing pieces of ourselves we'd kept hidden. I told her about my childhood, about the pressure to always be the good one, the reliable one. She told me about her time abroad, how she'd felt lost, like she was performing for an audience that wasn't there. As the sun set, we sat on her couch, our knees touching. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "This is new, and I don't know if I'm ready." She reached for my hand, her fingers lacing with mine. "I'm scared too, but I want this, us. I'm not going anywhere, Jenny." Her words were a promise, and I held on to them, letting them anchor me as we navigated this uncharted territory together. It happened on a rainy afternoon, the kind where the world feels soft and blurred. We were in Emma's apartment, baking cookies, a recipe she'd found online that promised to be foolproof. Flour dusted our clothes, laughter filling the air as we fumbled with measuring cups and argued over how much sugar was too much. "You're hopeless," she teased, flicking flour at me. It landed on my cheek, and I gasped, swatting at her playfully. "Oh, you're in trouble now," I said, grabbing a handful of flour. She squealed, dodging, and we ended up in a mock battle, the kitchen a mess of giggles and white powder. When we finally stopped, breathless and laughing, she reached to wipe the flour from my cheek. Her touch lingered, her fingers warm against my skin, and her eyes locked with mine. The air shifted, the playfulness giving way to something deeper, heavier. "Jenny," she murmured, her voice soft, hesitant. She leaned closer, her breath warm, and then she kissed me, soft, tentative, like she was afraid I'd pull away. I didn't. I kissed her back, my hands finding her waist, pulling her closer. The world fell away, the rain outside a distant hum, until it was just us, tangled in this moment. When we pulled apart, her eyes were bright, her cheeks flushed. "I've wanted to do that for so long," she whispered. "Me too," I admitted, my heart soaring. We stood there, foreheads touching, the cookies forgotten. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a beginning, a promise of something more. We spent the rest of the afternoon curled up on her couch, the rain pattering against the windows. We talked about everything and nothing, our hands intertwined, our laughter soft. It felt like coming home, like finding a piece of myself I hadn't known was missing. News of our relationship spread faster than I'd expected. Mike's friends whispered, their glances sharp and judgmental. I overheard one of them at a coffee shop, muttering about how I'd switched sides like it was a betrayal. It stung, but Emma's hand in mine made it bearable. Her family was another challenge. She told me about their calls, their questions about what she was doing with her life. They didn't understand, didn't see the way she lit up when we were together. "They'll come around," she said, but her voice wavered, and I knew it hurt her. We faced it together, though. We went back to the cafe where we'd had our first coffee date, and this time, we held hands across the table, unafraid. The barista smiled at us, and for the first time, I felt like we were part of the world, not hiding from it. One evening, we attended a local pride event, a small gathering with music and rainbow flags. Emma was nervous, her hand tight in mine, but she relaxed as we danced under the string lights, the crowd around us vibrant and welcoming. "This feels right," she said, her voice soft against my ear. "It does." I agreed, my heart full. We weren't just surviving. We were building something, carving out a space for ourselves. Months later, we moved in together, a small apartment filled with books, plants, and the chaos of two lives merging. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments over whose turn it was to do the dishes, moments of doubt when old insecurities crept in, but it was ours. We learned to navigate each other's quirks, to love not just the good moments, but the messy ones too. One evening, we sat on our balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Emma leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, her warmth grounding me. "I'm glad it was you," she said softly, her voice full of quiet certainty. I turned to her, my heart swelling. "Me too." We stayed there as the stars came out, our hands intertwined, the future stretching before us. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still challenges, still moments of fear, but we faced them together. Emma had become my anchor, my joy, my home. And as I looked at her, her eyes reflecting the starlight, I knew I'd found something worth fighting for.